on. Let's hope Caster sends the whole stream. At least it only missed the first few minutes of it. Ah, man. Rushing today. Forgot to turn my lights on again. Hello, Tuesday. It's one of those days. And here goes the here goes the GoPro yet again. Blowing out. I'm not even gonna mess with it. Last time it came back and popped back into the view it was supposed to pop into, so I'm just gonna leave it as is. You can catch the whole view of the back room of my office. So it is what it is. Anyway, what's going on, peeps? Got a lot happening regarding the election. Hopefully, this is the end of a lot happening with the election. Uh, and I'm bringing up my monitor here. So those of you on YouTube, like, what's that dude doing? Well, I'm just bringing up my monitor here, so I can actually see what's cracking. All right, so Joe Biden is your president. Shocker. He was actually confirmed. And let me get this GoPro fixed real quick because this is going to bother me to continue to have to look at this. All right. I do have some new equipment that I have for my contact looking through, going through to get me. So we'll see. Hopefully that'll come through soon, and we'll be able to move around from this this GoPro situation. All right. So Joe Biden was confirmed as the president-elect of the United States. No shockers there. There was a bunch of speculation about what Biden or what the electors were going to do. Were they going to be faithless? Were they going to, completely ignore like the current electors and like so all this stuff was going on, and it turned out to be a bunch of nothing. So what, 45 days, month and a half of speculation about what's going to happen yesterday on the 14th. And it all came to a head yesterday with not much fanfare. Yeah, it was covered and everything, but it's like, okay, for the 111th time, Joe Biden has won the election. That's all it is. But we're going to talk about it a little bit more. Biden has actually been coming out with a lot of his picks now, and those sort of things. I think we'll probably walk down the path of looking at each one kind of as we go, just to kind of see or just to kind of discuss some of the things that may be coming as a result of certain people being in the positions that they're going to be in. So we'll see on that aspect. Things like Pete Buttigieg is now the lead, or going to be the lead for the Department of Transportation. What does that actually mean? So we'll be looking at some of those things as well. So completely off the cuff, off of politics. So last episode, if you didn't catch it, I highly suggest you go catch it. We had Amika Ali join us, and we talked about government contracts. And like I had to go back and listen again because it was chock full of so much information. And I've gotten great feedback from the episode, and it's pretty much her, not, they're not like, oh man, you really killed it on that episode. No, it's not me. It was her because she was providing so much information, and that's great. I want to be able to help bring some of this great content. And there's a lot of information out there to disseminate. And so anybody that's behind the mic thinking they have all the answers, yeah, it's not worth their weight. There's certain things that you excel in, there's certain things you don't, and you use experts in the areas that you don't. And government contracts is one of the areas that I don't. But it was great, very, very much so a learning experience for me, and great to see that there's a service out there that she particularly offers. It's called howtowincontracts.com. Well, that's not what it's called, but that's the domain to actually go check it out and sign up. So if you're interested, if you're looking for something, like let's say you're in this pandemic and finances are tight, you're struggling, you're trying to figure out what to do next. Just understand like the things that we've been preaching. If you haven't been paying attention during this pandemic, we've talked about this ad nauseum, and one of the things that you have to come to the realization of is if you're working for somebody that depends on a great economy booming, you're in a bad spot because then you're dependent on the government, right? And great economy, let's put that in quotes, because the pandemic, 2 weeks, week really after the end of 1 week, the economy just went in a tank, right? Like stocks and things just plummeted, which wreaked havoc. So at the end of 2 weeks, we end up seeing just another plummet that was just ridiculous, right? 2 months into the pandemic, after shutting down, we still weren't necessarily open, right? Like it seems so. I was saying this the other day. I mentioned to somebody, I was having a discussion on Facebook, and I mentioned last year when PPP was released, the Paycheck Protection Program. And I sat back and I was corrected, and I sat back and thought about it and was like, spring seems like it was a year plus ago. Like straight up, like it just seems like it was so long ago that we were in springtime. That was 9 months ago, 8, 9 months. What? Like it's crazy. Like this year has been so freaking long that it just seems like it's been multiple years crammed into one. But anyway, come June, we were still dealing with lockdown things and that sort of stuff. And if I recall correctly, it was June or July. We saw the stock market started to creep up. You know, obviously the president was touting, biggest gain ever in the stock market, right? But when he talks about Obama's gains after the crash that Obama, excuse me, Obama inherited, he uh, he says that, well, it's easy to get there if you're going from the bottom. It's true. You can get massive gains when it's coming from the bottom, and that's what was happening in June or July. Obviously, he doesn't say that about his. He says they did it, but it's the same concept that when you're coming from the low point, you have an opportunity to have massive gains to really bring this thing even, you know, like basically back to normal. It's anyway. It's one of those things where when you're looking at numbers and you just look at it in that vein, out of context, it doesn't paint the full picture, right? So anyway, I digress. Um, we saw all of those gains happening while there were millions of people, literally millions, that were filing for unemployment in 1 week. And so it's like you have this situation where the economy, if you look at numbers alone, is booming. But if you look at what's really happening, like holistically, the economy's on the struggle bus. And because of that, back to the main point here is that's a problem if the company that you work for depends on the government, right? Excuse me, depends on a strong economy, right? So we can't always pick and choose and determine that. That's something that happens. It's one of those things that economies end up going through, and it's common, it's normal. Hey, Papa. Sorry, my little man just came home from school, so I apologize. Go ahead, Papa. Go do your work. Uh, and so it's one of those things that we can't really control in that aspect. But One thing you can control is you actually working for that company versus you working for your own company and diversifying your clientele, right? And so back to the original point of Amika Ali and her services. One of your clients could be the government, and they're always buying. They don't stop buying. They continue to buy, especially when there's, you know, some sort of hurricane, some natural disaster, whatever the case may be. They're looking for people. Construction that's happening in your area, they never stop the construction, pandemic or not, right? They continue the construction. Um, they may have, now mind you, clarity, they may have slowed down during that time where we were locked down and those sort of things, right? But there are certain things, there's money that's involved, there's time, there's, you can't just halt a, construction project for a whole year and come back later, depending on the phase that you're in, obviously. But they're building, and so not that you have to be on the crew that's doing the building. You could have dump trucks that are taking away debris, right, and those sort of things, right. So there's all these areas and potential ways to get off of uh, or get yourself out of a position where the government's uh, the government making good decisions uh, impacts you in such a visceral way like it did in the pandemic. It's always easier said than done, of course, but it's just another avenue that I want people to start thinking about if you found yourself in that position, how you can control your future, right? That's one of the main things that Jason Stapleton talks about here in the Nomadic Wealth Formula. It's basically a way to discuss. I mean, a way to look at building your wealth in a way that it's nomadic. So that's why it's called the Nomadic Wealth Formula. So that way you can make money from anywhere on Earth, right? There's all these ways. There's all these areas. Money's always moving. Even when the pandemic hit, money still had to flow. It still had to move. So there's ways to, find that. So in that vein, with the stock market, as I mentioned, stock market plummeted. Stock market came back up. Now we're at these all-time highs. Eventually, we're going to go back down, right? Like these things are going to happen. That's the way the markets move. Markets go up, down, and sideways. That's it. Those are the only ways. So we know that it's going to come back down because it's up right now. So you can start looking into things like stocks and investing in some of these assets as opposed to some of these liabilities like the Earn Your Leisure show. Great show. I suggest you check out if you haven't. But they have these shirts that say assets over liabilities. And the thing is, you want to get these assets together. Some of those assets, are like in physical metals and things like that, gold, silver. And then if you're interested in going into the Bitcoin route, Bitcoin, or the crypto route, Bitcoin. Bitcoin is moving. It's jumped back up to 19,400 earlier. I'm not sure what it is right now, but there's all these ways to make money when the market's going up. Obviously, you can buy low, sell high, but then you can also bet on the market and say, well, I'm pretty sure it's going to go down. So you can start working on these future contracts and you can start getting the wins when it's going down or when it's going up, right? People are always finding ways to make money. And the larger point to this is Joe Biden is your president to be. Because of that, some people believe the economy is about to go in the tank. To be honest, in my opinion, it's going to go anyway. I don't care who it was that got elected. We're going to end up having another decline. And what you have to do is position yourself in a way that you don't depend on the economy being up. Because if you depend on the economy being up, you're set for another failure, right? So if you think back to the '08 crash, everybody that had their money solely in a 401k, they lost tons of money. I know of one story where someone was near retirement age, had all their retirement in a 401k. Well, not all. Let's say not all. They had some insurance money as well that was available. But they had all of that money in the 401k. And when that happened, they lost well over 100,000 in their 401k. Mind you, they're at retirement age. What do you do when you're at retirement age and your retirement is depleted, not by your doing, but by outside forces, right? So this is why we want to diversify in that way. Somebody that has worked their entire life, did everything right, took care of their 401k, handled their family, respectfully, did everything that we're told we're supposed to do. Worked hard, crazy hard worker, moved up the ranks, just somebody that you just love to be around, right? Somebody that just has a great story. And then '08 happens and they lose almost all of their 401k, right? If they weren't retired in 2020, they would have lost it all again, right? So it's important to step out and diversify so that you're in the position to where you're like, I don't care who the president is. I'm going to win no matter what. As Jason Stapleton says, he likes to say, winners win. That's all it boils down to. Winners win. I'm a winner. I'm going to win. That's all it boils down to. So what we want to do is really, as I mentioned a couple weeks back, and I bring up just so those that are new that haven't caught the past episodes, what we're looking to do here is not just come on here and complain about politics. We're going to talk about it. We're going to discuss the current events, but we're also going to be here to encourage you to step out and to push yourself a lot further than you have in the past down paths of independence. One of the biggest things that I think mentally for me to get, we're taught what? Go to school, get your education, get a good job, invest in your retirement accounts, work for 30 years, and then by that time, you're about 55-ish, 58, 60, around there, and you can retire, right? Retirement's not an age. And that was the biggest thing for my mind to really switch and flip. I thought retirement was an age. We were taught that, right? We were taught retirement is an age. So because retirement is an age, we work for the retirement to happen at the certain amount of time and at that certain age. In some cases, it is an age depending on your profession. If you're a teacher, you have to work your certain amount of years plus, you know, you get, a different percentage based on how many years you work. If you work a full 20, 30, different percentages of how much of your check you get. Same thing for, regular government employees like postal workers, things like that, right? You get a percentage based on that. So those things are understandable. But even while you're working those jobs, you could be investing in these sort of assets that can help you grow your wealth, right? So everybody looks back and they say, man, I wish I would have gotten into, like, pick a stock. I wish I would have gotten into Apple, in 2005 before the iPhone came out. Or, man, I wish I would have gotten into it in the 90s when they were broke, right? It's always, I wish I would have. Well, you don't want to be 10 years from now thinking, I wish I would have jumped on whatever, pick a stock, right? So you want to start finding these investment angles to grow your wealth, right? You could take, especially for like kids, you can get these different account types like these custodial accounts, TD Ameritrade, Charles Schwab, It's the UTMA and the UGA accounts. Just look for those. And you can basically start putting money in. And if you put in $100 a month, let's say, by the time they're 18, if you're going from birth, by the time they're 18, they have $150,000 in their account, $200,000 in their account. Think about how your kids can be set up for life in a way that maybe you weren't, if you come from humble beginnings, as a lot of us do, where it's now you're done. Now here's, 150. They can go out, buy them a house, right? Now they're instantly working on wealth building because they're getting tax benefits and all these other sort of things. Or here's 150, your college is completely paid for, no loans, right? No loans that strap you with all of this debt because of, all of the government's failures that are pushing the cost of student loans higher, 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 right? So it can really, really, really change the future of your kids. And this is what we're doing, right? This is what we're working towards for our family, no matter which avenue that may be, whether that's kids or nephews and nieces or whoever you're looking out for, not just blood, just saying whoever that family is that you're trying to set up for the future, God kids, those sort of things, right? Those those scenarios, you can change that to where they don't care who the president is, right? It's not going to matter to them because now they are put in a position to where they actually have some wealth that they're working from, as opposed to starting from zero and trying to build something, right? So if you, again, I said 100, pick a number, right? If you can do 250 a month, 500,000, it gets even better. If you can only do 50, right? These are things that, you know, my mother used to tell me years ago when the kids were first born. Start an account, put some money away, do this, and you just don't listen, right? You're young, you have other ideas for the money. You always think there's more time, and then you look up and your kids in college, and it's like, I should have started that account. Ouch, right? So those things I think are important. It's just one of those things we want to see everybody do better, ourselves included. We just want to do better in terms of setting ourselves up, changing not just like culturally different aspects, but changing things for our families down the line. And so as we learn, as we get more information, as we grow in these different areas, we'll bring it to the show, and we're going to talk about those things as well. So super long preamble, super long rambling, I should say, for an intro. 20 minutes in, I guess you can't call that an intro anymore. All right, so we went through the entire election process, and all of these things we discussed in terms of potential avenues of things that could happen that could cause Trump to still be president, with faithless electors, those who ignore the will of the people, and that sort of stuff, right? So all of these long, last-ditch efforts, it ended up boiling down in the Trump administration losing every lawsuit except for one, I believe, and then getting to the Supreme Court and getting that, thrown out. I believe 22 was the last number. 22 states came together and said, hey, we don't like the way these 4 states did things. Obviously, they're Republican states, right? We don't like the way Georgia, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, we don't like the way they had their election rules, right? We talked about this in one of the last episodes. Gets to the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court's like, man, get going on, man. Get up out of here with that mess. Because it just doesn't make sense, right? In the long run, it's like, no, like this is stupid. Like this is dumb. There's no way states can go to other states and say, you need to throw out your election results because we don't like the way you did it. right? And that gave, you know, I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh at my Republican friends, but I'm going to laugh at you because you were all excited about these states. Like, yes, these states are, standing up, and this sort of thing. And it's just ludicrous, right? It's completely ludicrous. And this is we've said for the long time is these two parties, they don't care about you. This isn't about you. This is about them. It's their power that they're trying to retain. It has nothing to do with you. If Republicans all of a sudden switch, like let's just say, for whatever reason, Republicans switched and said, you know what, abortion should be legal. What do you think the Republican politicians are going to do? They're going to say abortion should be legal. You'll have some outliers, right? You'll have a few here and there, but you're not going to see the leadership. The leadership of the Republican Party is going to tote the line according to the party platform. That's just what it is, right? If all the Republicans in the country decided we need to support Black Lives Matter, the movement, not the organization, calm down. If you decided, oh yeah, Black Lives Matter, we need to make sure that, you know, we reverse some of these negative policies in America that are causing some of these problems. Uh, you'll see the politicians in kente cloth taking a knee. I'm sorry. It's still funny that the Democrats did that. But anyway, oh Pelosi, I'm gonna miss Pelosi when she's not no longer speaker. Um, so you'll see them change, right? The same thing with the Democrats, right? The Democrats, they weren't, you could see Schumer, Obama, Hillary. I don't know. Run down the list. You can see them talking about border walls and that sort of thing. I think up until like '06 or so, right? All that's gone now, right? The will of the people said, the Democrats, let's say, the will of the Democrats said, no on the wall. So what did the leadership do? Platform changed. Border walls racist, right? This is what the parties do. This is what they're going to do. They're going to placate to whatever the people want. That's why you saw all of these Republicans not acknowledging Joe Biden. It had nothing to do with legitimacy. Some of them are outright Trumpers, right? Let's exclude them, right? Let's go to the, I'll be nice. Let's go to the non-Trumpers. Let's just say that the non-Trumpers wouldn't come out. Very few trickled out, but the non-Trumpers wouldn't come out because they have elections coming up in 2 years. So of course they can't come out and just outright say the election was fine, there was no fraud, everything's cool. Because why? Because all of you were mad at Republican. I mean at the election and saying that it was fraudulent, right? You can't fathom, like you can't comprehend that Joe Biden beat Trump. There's no way. He got less than 1% in one attempt, less than 2% in another attempt, and this attempt he got the most in history. Oh my God. I saw that meme earlier. That's why I remember it. Oh my God, I can't believe it. You can't believe it. There's no way the military voted for Biden. No, absolutely no way. No way. Of course they want Captain Bone Spurs, right? You just can't believe it. You can't fathom the idea that Joe Biden won. And so because of that, they placate to your emotion. They know how you feel about it. So they placate. That's just what they're going to do. They're going to placate every single time to whatever emotion it is that brings them the result that they want. And that result is power. So all of that to lead into Mitch McConnell now comes out today and urges Republicans not to contest Biden's win on January the 6th, right? So this is one of the things that I said early in Trump's presidency is that the thing that I love about it is we learn so much. It's like all these things happen, right? Emoluments clause. Most folks, common folk, like the folks that aren't in that arena of knowing like the legalities of the presidential, office, the emoluments clause, we didn't know really fully what that was all about, right? Uh, you know, you start getting into the nuances of who has the power to do what, right? Like, is it Congress that controls this? Can Trump do that? Like, wait, he's signed an executive order for a Muslim ban. Like, what is that? Can he do that? Is that legal? Like, what is like you people ended up having to learn so much about what was going on. Well, it was no different with this election. Everybody now had to learn all these nuanced traits of the election and how the election process works, who does what, when they do what, right? So it's just been a 4 years of learning, and I don't think it's about to stop. But in that vein, in terms of the election process, this article here is from Axios about Mitch McConnell. Says Senator Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and his leadership team urged fellow Republicans on a conference call today not to participate in any efforts to object to certify Joe Biden's presidential election win in the January 6th joint session, two sources on the call tell Axios. This is why it matters. This is about politics as much as about doing the right thing. McConnell expressed concern about such a vote because the GOP would have to vote it down, something that could damage incumbents for a re-election in 22. What did I just say? They knew what they were doing by toting the line of not upsetting Trump in the vein of potentially Trump could win, right? Like potentially these court cases, maybe he comes out with something, right? Because the idea that Trump is going to lose something, people still are like, I don't know. Maybe he could do it, right? But then on the flip side, you were so mad that they had to think about 2022. Here's Mitch McConnell telling you the exact same thing. I hadn't even read this article before here. But anyway, Senators Roy Blunt and John Thune joined McConnell in making the case to colleagues today in a private caucus lunch. This is what they're saying. McConnell said there's zero sentiment for an objection according to sources. This is what Thune added. It would be great if there were no members that took up the issue. The request comes a day after the Electoral College formalized Biden's win and hours after McConnell addressed Biden as president-elect in a speech on the Senate floor, because he refused to do it, right? This isn't something, he didn't do this in 2016. In 2016, he called Trump president-elect immediately. It was president-elect Trump, right? As soon as he had the chance, president-elect Trump, right? Because that was his guy from a team perspective, right? Not that he liked him, from a team perspective, he had to support his guy. Fast forward, and he's like, oh, well, we're going to let the process play out. We want to see let the court do what it's doing. Mind you, in 2016, we had court cases. They were quieter, right? But we still had court cases. Still had electors who had to vote last year. I think it was the 17th last year, but it may have been the 14th. Still had to do that, right? All of that stuff still had to happen. But this year, McConnell's like, no. But now he finally, after the electors, decided to call him President-elect Biden, right? So the deeper look of this on the Axios article is that some House Republicans plan last-ditch challenges to election results during the Electoral College tally. Now, what this was it's just a farce, right? Like it's like they've gone down so many rabbit holes of trying to overturn this election. At this point, they've said it's a coup and all this stuff. At this point, it really would be, right? If they came out and they went, we've had states that have done recounts. Trump is trying to stiff, I think, Michigan on the recount. They owe $3 million. And they're like, no, we don't want to pay, sort of thing, right? And I say Trump, the Trump campaign. But they did the recount, came out, everything was clear, certified. Georgia, they did the recount, came out, everything was clear, certified, right? They found votes here, there, tweaked numbers, that sort of thing, but still same end result, right? So now the last ditch effort is Congress convenes on the 6th, and this is what they're talking about here. So this is another Axios article. Some House Republicans plan last ditch challenge to election results during electoral college tally. Says several Trump allies led by Representative Mo Brooks of Alabama, he's a Republican, obviously, plan to challenge the election results on January the 6th when Congress convenes to officially tally the votes from the Electoral College and certify Joe Biden as the president-elect. This is pretty much, and I'm going to continue on the article, but just a sidebar. This is pretty much just a counting job. It's not really, it's not much that they have to do here. They're just tallying the votes. That's it. Take the votes, tally them up, stamp them, let's move on, right? They're not really doing too much extra, but they want to actually challenge the electors. So it went from Biden gets the votes to we need to sue, and we're going to sue and do all these things. We're going to release the Kraken. That seemed to have never actually manifested. All of this evidence supposedly that's supposed to be out, that's supposed to overturn it, didn't really happen. They tried to get electors removed. Didn't happen. They tried to, I'll say, coerce electors to become faithless. Didn't happen. Now they're looking at, Trump was looking at Barr actually digging into this and, launching a full-scale investigation into it and, letting it be known that the election was fraudulent. Didn't happen. All of these things were supposed to go on and happen. The elector certified or, confirmed the election, and now Congress is supposed to get it, and now they're supposed to certify the election, and now they're looking at one more way to be able to overturn this election, right? All of the stuff about the court cases being a threat to democracy and all of that, okay, whatever. Like, if that's your feeling, if that's your emotion towards it, is what it is. But that's legal. It's common. It happens all the time. Trump went overboard, of course. It's Trump. But there's nothing wrong with it, right? That's the process, right? We went through the process. Judges saw it, including his judges, his Supreme Court nominees, all had a say and threw out the last one in spectacular fashion. So they can't, just call them all rhinos and tout that Trump did this amazing thing by putting them in the Supreme Court, because it's either they're great or they're rhinos, which is Republican in name only, right? So this is just another attempt to try to subvert the will of the people, is what it boils down to. And don't get me wrong, in 2016, there were plenty of calls for the electors to be faithless. There were plenty of calls. I remember seeing it. This was the last chance to save democracy because Trump was going to destroy democracy, right? So Not the same, not to both sides this thing, but literally both sides were doing a lot of the same thing. Just they amplified it this time. All right, so why does it matter? Trump has refused to concede the election and has repeated false allegations of mass voter fraud while losing dozens of court cases. The challenges Brooks plans to bring up in Congress are extremely unlikely to change the outcome, but they will be another high-profile effort on the part of some Republicans to validate millions of votes to overturn the election. Here's what they're saying: we have a superior role under the Constitution than I think he meant we have a more superior role under the Constitution than the Supreme Court does, than any federal court does, than any state court judge does. What we say goes. That's the final verdict. So it doesn't matter what you say. Doesn't matter about your vote. Remember 2016, the liberal side, the liberal, the let's just say everybody who voted not for Trump, no matter who you voted for. On that side of the fence, you had electoral challenge, complaints. Basically, hey, the electoral challenge, the electoral college needs to be thrown out, and blah blah blah, right? Now you have the right saying some of the same stuff, right? We need to get rid of the electoral college, right? Now, mind you, Trump said this in 2012 as well when Romney lost to Obama. Even beyond that, though, they're not just saying, and this is his words, he's not just saying throw out the electoral college. He's literally saying we don't care what happens. We're going to choose who wins. We get the final verdict. It's your party. If you're a Republican, this is your party, right? It doesn't matter if you want Trump to win or not and you're a Republican. This is your party who is outright, actively stating we need to forget what the will of the people say. We just need to do whatever we want to do. Now, when this whole filibuster thing came up, I said out loud, Democrats, you don't need to do that. Because if you do, you're not going to like it whenever Republicans are in control. You may get this one decision, but you're not going to like it down the line. And now they've paid for it multiple times. There's nothing they could do about any of Trump's Supreme Court picks. 1, 2, 3. They can complain, have all the hearings you want, bring up all the witnesses, talk about whatever you want to talk about. Doesn't matter. Why? Because you set yourself up for failure by going for a single moment in time. And this is exactly what Brooks is saying to do right here. Because it's not fun when the rabbit has the gun. And when the Democrats are in power, because they will be, right? It's just like the market. The market's up, down, sideways, right? Congress is going to be, House is going to flip, Senate's going to flip, presidency's going to flip. You're going to have this flipping back and forth. And then eventually at some point, they're all three going to align. And when they all three align, or when the specific House that has the power here in Congress to actually make this call does it and is Democrat, they'll do it too. And they'll just say, do what you want to do. Have the election, sure. Whatever, doesn't matter. Oh, the electors, they serve. Oh, okay, yeah, no. Doesn't matter. Yeah, we got this. January 6th, we'll just pick who we want to win. I mean, you don't see a problem with that? Right? Like, I mean, you got to, at some point, you got to throw party politics out the window and you got to just call it like it is. That ain't right. That's not right. I don't care how you slice it. That's not right. So this is what they're trying to do come January 6th. I don't see it going anywhere. As you say, as you hear, they're already, um, saying don't do it. They're trying to tell people not to do it. Um, but it is what it is, right? And again, this isn't new. It's worth noting that just because it's challenged doesn't mean that it's going to be overturned, right? Let's just say if they challenge it on the 6th, not doesn't mean it's going to be overturned. But here's the thing. It's worth noting. House Democrats challenged Republican victories in the Electoral College in 2001, 2005, and 2017. But those voters were essentially in protest with their party's nominee already conceding the election. The difference here is they haven't conceded, right? Here's what's awkward. All eyes will be on Vice President Mike Pence, who will be in charge of counting the Electoral College votes and overseeing any objections. The bottom line is any objection to the Electoral College count may delay things, but it's not going to change the winner. Right? So it's just interesting to see these antics. And right now, I just want you to remember this point in time. I don't care which party you're on. Remember this point in time. In 4 years, don't forget it. If you're listening to this, you were alive 4 years ago, right? Because I don't think we have a pretty big base of 4-year-olds, right? Or even 8-year-olds. So 4 years ago, you were alive. If you voted, you were paying attention to this thing. You saw a lot of what the Republicans are doing, but on the liberal side. So don't forget that. So when you're judging these people and you're calling out your friends for all the negativity and things like that that you don't, if you step back, a lot of that stuff was happening in 2016. It was just reverse. And you can justify it. You can say, well, it was Trump and, he was a threat and all these sort of things. And look what he ended up doing. You can justify it, but that's the same thing the folks on the right are going to do. They're going to justify it. So bring that back around to the very first segment. Don't depend on these people. These folks ain't loyal. They are not loyal. Excuse me. They simply aren't loyal. They're going to do whatever they need to do to subvert any rules, even the law if they need to get their way. That's what they're going to do. So don't put yourself in a position to depend on them. Work on that nomadic wealth. All right. Last topic here. Really good news. We have the vaccine coming about. Now, I had a friend who, actually, let me see if I can pull it up real quick. I had a friend who posted a meme earlier that was very much so spot on. I'm not signed in on there. I'll see if I can pull it up on my phone. Excuse me while I look away and talk. So the meme was basically it was basically about the vaccine, and it's a lot of people who are like straight up, I'm against the vaccine. I'm not taking that, right? And I mean, I'm at the point where it's like, well, I'm not taking it unless I need it. Right now, I don't necessarily need it. And I'm not in line to take it anyway. There's plenty of people who need it, like, the first responders and medical personnel and all of those folks. They need it more than I do at this point. So it's not like I can walk into the store and be like, hey, give me access to this vaccine. Not just yet. But they are rolling out, and that's the important part. I can't find the meme, but I can remember basically what it was saying. And I may get the year wrong, but it was close. It'll be close. So the thing about the vaccine that people are concerned about mostly is it going to be, or actually now I remember who actually posted it and I can search for it. Is it going to be safe for me to take? And is it going to cause a problem with my system. Am I going to die? Is it going to hurt me? That sort of thing. It's been rushed. If you're not a Trump supporter, you're like, no, Trump did it. Like, I don't know, Also, Kamala Harris had mentioned stuff like that during the election, like a rushed vaccine under Trump, I don't trust, that sort of thing, right? Now, they were obviously trying to push this out. They wanted the vaccine before the election because they get the election boom, that sort of stuff. You know, general stuff that they're going to try to do to get these wins to get reelected and maintain power. Well, timing didn't work out, but now we have vaccines that have been delivered. They're here in the states. Pfizer's being administered right now. Folks in New York are getting it. Corpus Christi, shout out to CC Nuesis. I see y'all. Got your vaccine in today down at Spahn Hospital. So those sort of things they're good news. Doesn't matter if you like the vaccine or not, right? It's good news, and here's why. The the FDA had pushed for emergency authorization. Now this was for an over-the-counter, at-home COVID test, right? So they're pushing for that. That means we can now, with confidence, know whether or not we have COVID. It means we can not have to go to hospitals. If there's enough supply, it means that we can have schools can, or not we, but schools can basically do better testing, and they'll know whether or not somebody has it if they come into the office sick or whatnot, right? It just helps speed up this process. It keeps hospitals from over flooding with the basic check of, do I have COVID, right? Like that's the basic check. Do I have COVID, right? So that helps on that front. Operation Warp Speed was basically the Trump administration's push to get the vaccine out in front of, or through the normal process. Because, you got to imagine, like the government moves like an albatross. Like it's so freaking slow to move. They had to kind of remove some red tape. You know, anyway, I'm not going to get into the politics of that discussion. We don't have enough time. But they had to remove some red tape to be able to get things through a lot faster, right? Couple all these things together, the at-home test, the vaccine that's rolling out. And actually, I heard Moderna, so Pfizer's here now. It's been approved and it's gone through. But the FDA confirmed Moderna's vaccine as well. So now we have multiple vaccines that are going here in the States, right? So all of these things, faster testing at home, and multiple vaccines that have been released, as well as vaccines worldwide, because we're now like everything's global. So people traveling from out of country to the States, and from the States out of country, we have ways to handle this. That means come 2021, we're going to start seeing a rise again in, I hate the phrase, but in normalcy, right? Like going back to normal. And so what that means for you is different than what it means for me, right? I work from home. It's my normal thing to be here, right? Some companies said all of 2021, even though they have offices, they're not working from the offices. Like I think Microsoft said it. I think Salesforce was another one. I believe Facebook said the same. Mind you, I'm talking about tech companies because, I'm in tech. But we'll start seeing those sort of things happening. And if you can imagine militaries getting vaccinated because they have to, right? All of the medical personnel, first responders, essential workers, all of those folks, they're going to get it. And then as people start lining up and people start getting it, it's just going to be one of these things where the numbers are going to lead to a large swath of the country being vaccinated. At that point, you can move with a little more confidence. So back to the meme aspect of the safety of this. It's just something to think about. And it ties into the first point about saying 10 years ago, man, I wish I would have invested in such and such company 10 years ago. Man, I'd have a boatload of money, right? Same concept. So this is what my friend Ishmael posted. He said, your grandparents might have died from smallpox before you were born if it weren't for a vaccine, but you're here and thriving. Think about how bad vaccines are, the irony, right? So the meme says, after a global eradication campaign that lasted more than 20 years, the 33rd World Health Assembly declares the world free of smallpox in 1980. So vaccines did that, right? I know there's a bunch of anti-vaxxers out there who are not going to get the vaccine. There are people who say, I'm not going to get the flu, right? The reason why COVID hit us so hard is because of the unknown. Everybody wants to compare like the death stats to the flu. And early on, they were comparing it to like car wrecks and all this stuff. Like they want to compare all these stats. But we know why car accidents kill people, right? It's a myriad of reasons, right? But we know why that happens. And we know how to prevent a good number of them. Not all, but we know how to prevent car accidents. The flu. We know why the flu kills. We know how the flu kills. We know how to stop the flu. We're not going to always be able to stop it, but we know how to fight it. Go down the list of everything that kills people in this world. We know ways to address it. I was talking to a friend today, and they didn't realize how bad diarrhea is. It may sound funny. You may be like, what? Diarrhea kills something like 8,000 children a day. Right? Think about it. You're malnourished, you're struggling, and then diarrhea hits, and all of your fluids are gone, and it just pushes you to a point of no return. Right? So when you think about all of these things, we know how to fix these things, right? And not everything, right? There's still things that we're learning about, right? But the AIDS epidemic was such a massive thing, because, we didn't know how it was transmitted. We didn't know like all these things. Mind you, I was 8, 9 when that was happening. But it ingrained in my head about sitting on toilet seats and all this stuff and watch for needles under toilet seats, right? Like these are all the things I recall. I didn't understand it, but they were ingrained in me, just like they're going to be ingrained in my youngest son, who's 6 and now doesn't want to go anywhere without a mask, right? These things are ingrained because he's lived through this, right? But we're getting to the point where we know how to battle this thing. If these vaccines turn out to be working well for military and those sort of things, like the efficacy is already 90+%, 94%, I believe, in Pfizer, 96 or 98 in Moderna, I think, or vice versa, one of the two. When we're looking at those sort of things, and that starts happening more and more and more, things start getting back to what we would call normal. So as that happens, and as industries start coming back online, be ready. Things are going to probably start shifting quickly, right? They may still try to push mask mandates and those sort of things. Be ready. When the market drops, make sure, as they say, have some powder dry. There's going to be some buying opportunities at those times. I heard on a show that I was listening to, a guy said, I lost my job. I live with my parents. I was getting the unemployment checks. I was investing it, right? He put himself in a better position. He could have went out and blew it and got him some J's and TVs or whatever else he wanted to do. He could have did whatever. Or he could have did like my kids do and just buy DoorDash all day. Learn that lesson the hard way. But these opportunities are going to present themselves. So it's great news, no matter where you stand on the vaccine, that the vaccines exist. that people are going to be vaccinated, and eventually this will be like the flu. You get your vaccine, move on. COVID's starting to ride, get your vaccine, move on, right? We'll start seeing the cycles, the patterns, those sort of things. But it may never go away. Just like the flu. You get the flu yearly. We don't know. We're still in the land of unknown with COVID, right? We know some things, we don't know everything. So it may not be until the end of 2021 that they get rid of masks. There's all these things coming out, right? Just be ready. Put yourself in the position now to be able to excel later, because the time is going to come and you want to be ready. We're the Political Free Agents. We do this thing twice a week. Sunday, 2 p.m., Tuesday at 7 p.m. Catch us on politicalfreeagents.com. You can go to the live page and you can catch the live audio if you want, or you can catch the live audio and video on the YouTube page. Make sure you click down here somewhere, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. That way you're notified every time that we go live. Also, you can find us at Political Free Agents, at PFA Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We're PFA, and we're out. Catch you.